What is up YouTube? My name is Sam and I work under the artist name of Kyo. Recently been struggling to write music. I've been suffering with a bit of BeatBlock. I've just not been able to get anything that I've been really happy with, but I've just about managed to write something that I really like the vibe of, and I wanted to break that down for you here and possibly drop some tips on how I got over the BeatBlock. Just going to play a little snippet of the track right now, and then we'll jump into the project file and see what's going on. So as you can hear, it's pretty chill, pretty simple beat. It's got a kind of upbeat vibe to it. We've got pianos, we've got guitars. Let's see what's going on in this project file. I started this beat with a drone sound. I used the Labs Azure guitar, which is a really nice kind of pad guitar sound. It works really nice for drones, and with a little bit of processing, you can get a really interesting texture. Let's take a listen to the pad on its own, and then we'll have a look at the processing. Really simple. We're just playing an A major chord with an A on the octave above also, and then that third and that fifth note are just sort of alternating and keeping the drone moving while it's playing. I only used one chord for this drone instead of 2 or 4 to keep it moving. I just went with one as I was struggling with what to write and maybe overcomplicating things. This then served as a base for the track, and that's a really nice tip. If you are struggling, do something simple and then build upon that with further layers. And having the A major here allowed me to then use that chord when it came to add pianos, and it dictated which scales were available to me when it came to writing more of the melodies. Once I had that down, I went on to the chords, and you see here we went with that A major chord again, then into a C sharp minor chord, up into a B minor chord. And then on the second time round, we go A major chord, C sharp minor, D major, and then into that B minor. So really nice, really simple progression. To make it a bit more interesting, once I had the bass chords down, I then started playing with different intonations of the chords. So we moved the E from sitting within the normal chord shape up one octave, and then with that C sharp minor, played just the C and the E, and then played the same notes one octave up rather than playing the standard chord. Really simple changes, but they make your chords much more dynamic and much more interesting. After the chords, I moved on to adding some sort of a melody. I used the Decent Sampler claustrophobic piano for the melody here, and that's just playing a really simple melody. We're just building layers at this point, really trying not to overcomplicate what I was writing. Really simple, and with the chords, with the drone, it sounds really nice. Let's have a little look at the processing that's been done on these elements. The drone, all we have is an EQ rolling off the lows and the highs. We then have a Flux Mini, and what this is doing is it's essentially a sidechain plugin, and the noise of the drone follows this pattern. So you see it kind of gets louder and quieter, dips in and out, and it adds loads of texture to the pad. And we then have a Valhalla Supermassive. On the piano, we've got that Valhalla Supermassive again, but it's turned down to about 40%, and the density I turned down quite a lot as well. And then an EQ rolling off those highs and those lows. And then for the Decent Sampler, An EQ letting in some of those higher frequencies, rolling off everything below around 500, and then another reverb Valhalla Supermassive. I really love this plugin. It's so dynamic and you get so many different options available to you within just the stock plugin, and it's completely free. So it's definitely worth downloading and checking out all the different sounds that you can get with it. Let's take a listen to these 3 elements so far. To build on this melody, I wanted to add some guitar, not as a lead, just to add a little bit more to sort of the foundation of the track. Here we have the Dynamic Guitars acoustic guitar plugin, and all that's doing is playing that same chord as the drone, but it's just keeping a little bit of movement. I tried to emulate sort of a guitar player finger picking the guitar, so it's not playing the same thing every bar, it's actually changing up continuously. And that just sits below everything else in the mix, just adding a little bit more depth to this track, as well as a little bit more of those higher frequencies, but we're not overshadowing that main melody. Once I had that, I wanted to add another counter melody to the track. I introduced this chill guitar preset from Flex, and this is sort of following the piano melody from earlier, adding a few extra notes, just adding a little bit more inflection, a little bit more depth, and just another layer to that melody. We've got a counter, but they're kind of playing together. Let's take a listen to the guitar on its own, and then we'll take a listen to everything all together. And so this guitar really brings quite a lot of emotion to the track. So let's take a listen to what we've got so far, and then we will have a look at some drums. Really nice, and that's the main bulk of sort of what I call the foundation of a track there. We've got some chords, we've got some ambience coming from the drone sound, we've got a couple of melodies sort of playing together, and once you have these down, you can really start to play around with your arrangements and build this out into a whole track where you've got one melody playing at the start and then another melody coming in later on. You can swap out, take the chords out for a second and just have the guitars playing. So once you kind of build up more and more layers of your track, you can then start arranging that into different sections of a song. And that's where it starts to get really interesting. And that can really help with allowing your creativity to flow. Let's take a look at some drums now. I kept these drums relatively simple. We've got a kick and then adding in a snare, a rim, some Foley here, and then finally a hi-hat. Relatively simple, but there's a couple of different elements going on. We've got those 2 Foleys that are sort of playing in each ear, playing at different times, keeping the drum moving. The hi-hats there playing that triplet rhythm, which really makes the track a little bit more upbeat. It really adds a little bit more of that sort of movement and a little bit more of that swing to the track. Once I had the drums, I added a few textural elements. Here we've got a river sound from Cymatics, and then I made this riser out of one of the piano sounds. So let's take a listen to what we've got so far. And the final part to this track that I've forgotten to talk about here is a bass, and that's why it's sounding a little bit thin at the moment, because we haven't got any of that warmth that comes through from the bass. This is just the stock acoustic bass that comes with FL Studio. It's a really nice sounding acoustic bass. I use it in most of my beats. With a little bit of processing, it can work really nicely. What we've got here is the root notes from the chords, and we're playing it on 2 octaves at the same time. So let's take a listen. Really simple, but just adds that depth and that warmth to the track. And that's pretty much it for this track. As you can see, once I had all of those elements, I messed around with some arrangements. So we've got sort of an intro here, things building up, and then we break down to a bridge in this second half, and then everything comes back in together at the end here. I don't know if this track is completely finished, but I'm pretty happy with the way this has turned out. Do let me know what you think in the comments. Just gonna let this track play you out one more time, but thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about this video in the comments, and if you have any ideas of tracks that you'd like to see me making or breaking down, do let me know in those comments. Peace.